Hey everybody, welcome to
Hey
today's
everyone.
workshop for driving decisions, leveraging Sitefinity Insight for business growth.
Today's session is going to be a little bit less interactive, so we are going to spend some time in Insight itself. But as the title suggests, right, leveraging Sitefinity Insight for business growth, we also want to give you some ideas of how you can activate and grow your business using the information that Sitefinity Insight has captured, the analytics that we've done before, right? So for those of you who attended the previous sessions that we did, right, we spoke about defining our key business objectives. We spoke about tracking key touch points across the customer journeys, but also collecting data for our visitors, analyzing that data and segmenting our visitors into their areas of interest. So today's session really is about, okay, now that we have all this information, now that we understand our audience much better, right, what do we do with that information and this knowledge to take that a step further? So for these scenarios, we have picked up a few examples that might be not necessarily specific to you guys, but these are just ideas on how you can activate on that. And with that in mind, we do want to jump into today's agenda so we can see what those examples are going to be. Again, as with previous sessions, we are going to start with a bit of a recap, right? Last time we spent a lot of time talking about audience segmentation, so we want to look at that again. We also want to talk about probably the most standard activation method that we have when it comes to, again, using the data that we've captured in Insight, which is personalization. We will be doing that in a Sitefinity instance. Unfortunately, it's one that we use for testing purposes. So again, we can show you how to do the personalization. That's going to be a little bit different for your own Sitefinity instances. After that, we are going to be talking about external activation channels, right? So not necessarily the web channels, not necessarily the Sitefinity ecosystem itself. And lastly, we're going to talk about capturing as well as activating non-Sitefinity managed sources. So things such as maybe a single page application that's not necessarily hosted in Sitefinity or another website that you manage. We also want to take a look at how those can be integrated with the whole Sitefinity Insight experience. And lastly, of course, we are going to open it up for questions and answers. Previous sessions have been very interactive. People had some interesting questions. I'd be happy to answer any new ones that come up from today's session. So with that being said, we are going to jump into our recap part here, right? Personas and lead scoring. These are the two main methods that we have for audience segmentation. So if we go back into Sitefinity Insight very quickly, and this is the data center that you should have received an invite for. If this is your first session that you're attending, you should have an invite. You can activate your account. You'll gain access to a data center in Insight that's exactly the same as this one called My Bank here. And within this data center, we do have the two audience categories, right? Personas that we spent a lot of time on last time, as well as lead scoring. So just to give you a quick recap, right? If we take a look at the different personas that we've defined here, in this case, we are a fictional bank. So we're talking about, a lot of banking services. So we have existing customers, we have people who are using our savings accounts, we have home loan prospects here that we've defined. And if we jump into the home loan prospect persona, we very quickly want to summarize again how personas are created and how they are managed. We essentially use a point scoring system where every activity tracked by Sitefinity Insight can grant you points that will contribute towards a specific persona threshold. This threshold can be whatever you decide. The point scoring can be whatever you decide. But the idea is that over time, people interacting with you, your websites, your other channels, can accumulate enough points to be qualified into a persona. And once people are qualified into a persona, and we'll just see one that's a little bit more developed here with the savings account persona, we will be able to tell what interests them, right? What are the top pages that these people are visiting? What are the conversions that they're converting into, right? The key business objectives that we spoke about on our very first session. What key touch points they're interacting with. And lastly, and something that is quite useful here, we will get a list of known contacts that already belong to this persona. So when we have this list of contacts, and this is going to become very relevant when we talk about external activation, we can very easily export this list of people with their contact data, with their email addresses, right? And if we're running an email campaign, if we are managing the data of these people in our CRM, we can very easily then import this information into those data sources to allow us to, again, understand a little bit more about our people, target them a little bit better with our campaigns, and so on. Now, again, very, very easily here, we can export this context file. The CSV file is taking a little bit longer to be downloaded. But while we're waiting for that, we can also take a look at lead scoring. So lead scoring is very similar to personas in the sense that people are accumulating points and they're being segmented based off of specific criteria. But these criteria now are where they are at in their journey with us, right? So here we can see we have different journeys that we've defined, right? Home loan prospect journeys, credit card journeys, membership journeys, and so on and so forth. And in this case, rather than people qualifying in and out of a specific persona, they are moving through different stages, right? Awareness, consideration, application, someone being approved for a home loan, someone being declined for a home loan. And again, as with personas, in every step of the journey, we have this information readily available, right? Who is in the awareness phase? And we have a list of contacts. Who is in the consideration phase here? And we get a list of contacts as well. And the way to use this information, I know that, going in here, exporting these contacts for every single stage or every single persona might get a little bit tedious. So I want to point your attention to a better way of doing that, which is relying on the contact section of our audience here. Because with the contact section, right, this is a full unfiltered list of everyone that we know about in Sitefinity Insight. However, we can use these advanced search capabilities here that will allow us to generate these curated lists of contacts, right? So let's say I am looking to um, create a promo campaign for people who already have a savings account with me, and I want to offer them better um, better offers for their home loans, right? But I want to make sure that they're interested in home loans, because if they're not, I don't want to be talking to them with empty offers that might not capture their attention. So what I can easily do with the advanced search here is I can use persona criteria here. I can say, okay, I want people with savings account and I want everyone who matches this persona. But in addition to that, I can also combine this with my lead scoring journey stages, right? I can say, well, I want people to at least be started on the home loan journey. I want them to at least have shown awareness in home loans. And maybe we want this to be for the past 6 months, right? And I can continue expanding this list, right? I can also add filters for touch points that they've interacted with, conversions that they've already converted in. And this is a very, very nice and easy way to get a curated list of contacts. In my case, I'll just add one more lead scoring stage here, which is going to be the consideration phase for my home loan prospects. And what I can do with this filter now is I can search, and I'm going to get a much deeper list of contacts here, right? Everyone who's currently who currently has a savings account with us, but also people who are interested in home loans. And I can export this. I can import this into my email marketing tool, for example, and I can send out a ready-made tailored offer to those people with some terms that might push them over the edge to apply for a home loan. So this is why segmenting our audience is very useful, because it then allows us, again, to speak to those people on their terms and in a way that interests them and in a way that they expect. So just jumping back into our slides here, we do want to transition to the next topic that we have, which is personalization. Now, again, a lot of the standard messaging that we show to our visitors is going to happen through our web channel. And if that web channel is managed through Sitefinity, we have some great news for you, which is that all of this information that we just saw, right, the personas, the lead scoring stages, the filtering that is available within the context list, that information is also directly available in Sitefinity, and you can change and personalize your Sitefinity managed websites depending on which personas people match, which stage of the journey they're currently at, and so on. We are going to go back to our demo here, but now we are going to move over to this banking website that we have, right? Which, again, we saw a little bit of on the very first session that we had, but now we just want to jump into Sitefinity itself, and we want to briefly update the content on the website to reflect that audience segment that I just mentioned, right? Products with savings accounts who are interested in home loans. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we define our segment in Sitefinity CMS. And again, I've done some of the work prior to the webinar here, so we can see I actually have a user segment defined called home loan prospects. But if we take a look at the definition of home loan prospects, right, it's just using the persona that we saw, right? This is a persona that we created last time, and we've been developing a little bit. But what if I wanted to make this, again, more comprehensive, right? I can continue adding characteristics here, right? I want people who have matched the home loan prospect persona, but also people who have a savings account. So I can add a new characteristic. I can select the Sitefinity Insight persona. I have a list of all the personas that I've already defined and captured in Insight, and I can add this here. In addition to that, I can also say, well, if someone isn't already a home loan prospect, maybe they have shown interest in home loans, right? So this is where the lead score journeys come into play, right? I have my home loan journey here, I have my awareness stage, and I also have my consideration stage here. And maybe these are the people that I want to target, right? So the same way that we can filter a list of contact in Sitefinity Insight, we can do the exact same thing here, but define those people as a specific segment and as a persona. And the good thing here is that this personalization will happen even if these people are anonymous, right? Maybe they haven't submitted a form yet, they haven't registered, they haven't logged in. We don't know who these people are. The personalization is still going to work for them, even though they haven't given us an email address. So now that we have our home loan prospect segment expanded, we can go in and we can jump into our homepage. And we can navigate to, let's say, this home banner that we see here, right? And we can see that by default, our home banner is talking about green car loan options, right? But now that I've defined my ideal home loan prospects, I want to be able to talk to them in a different way. And again, just to save us a little bit of time um, in the preparation for this example, I've already defined a personalized version of this home loan banner, so I can very easily switch between those here, and we can see, okay, now we're talking about home loan options here, right? Get a lower personalized rate when applying for a home loan. We have a different background here. We have a different call to action. And what we can do now, right, is we can modify this. We can, there we go. We can modify the content here, right? We can update the messaging. We can make it even more appealing. Maybe again, add some promotional information here and so on and so forth. And once we have all of those segments defined, the other good thing here is that we don't necessarily need to go through the entire customer journey in order to see what's happening with our personalization. If we go back to our personalization console here, we have the ability to preview the site as every segment, right? So I don't have to go in and read through all of my home loan offerings. I don't have to download the latest home loan terms and conditions and application documents and so on to show that I'm a home loan prospect. Instead, we can just view the site as a home loan prospect directly from the personalization console here. And we can see we get the personalized version of the website. And if we switch from a specific segment and we go back to everyone, we can see that if someone hasn't qualified into this persona, again, they're seeing green car loan options because this is our generic offering that we currently have and we want to promote. So again, this is probably the most standard approach that we have when it comes to the activation of the different audience segments. Again, the website is something that can be very easily personalized to change the messaging for that. Now, so far, what we've spoken about really kind of stayed in the Sitefinity ecosystem, right? The basic activation channel that we have with the personalization, everything is connected with the Sitefinity Insight connector. And excuse me. But again, a lot of the information and a lot of the channels that we communicate with our audience on, they might not be the web channel and they might not be managed in the Sitefinity ecosystem. So this is where we want to talk a bit about how we can achieve that as well. And we are going to go back into our demo here. And what we want to talk about now is the ability to capture this data, right? Someone becoming a home loan prospect into external systems. Now, the way that we're going to achieve this is by a combination of features, right? So the example that we want to talk about is making sure that as soon as someone matches a persona, we add them to our email campaign list. And for the purposes of today's demo, right, I am using MailChimp, and we'll just log back in here. But it's one of the more popular tools out there for managing email campaigns. It's also very easy to manage. So we've chosen this as an example for our webinar here. But the idea here is that I am already managing a list of home loan prospects within MailChimp. And I want to make sure that if I get new home loan prospects, they end up in MailChimp in real time, right? So that the next time I run a email campaign for my home loan prospects, I don't have to go through the tedium again of going back in here, running the filtered list, exporting it, checking who's already in MailChimp, who already isn't, and so on and so forth, right? So we want this to be more or less automated, and we want to be able to achieve this without having to double check the data every single time. So what we can do here is we can leverage two separate functionalities. The first one is the ability to create webhooks within Sitefinity Insight, right? So again, for the purposes of this demo, I've already created a webhook, but the idea behind webhooks is that as soon as something happens in Insight, right? As soon as we get a new contact, as soon as that contact matches a persona, as soon as they enter a lead score threshold or they exit the lead score threshold, we want to be able to send this data out somewhere externally, right? So we can see I've already defined a home loans prospect webhook, and this will happen every time someone enters this persona, right? So we'll send the information about that person to an external system. Now, the challenge here usually is, okay, but how will that external system capture the data, right? Insight is sending it, but we usually have to build out a middleware. We have to write a lot of code in order to make sure that this data ends up successfully in other systems. So what we decided to go with as an approach, and this is for Sitefinity in general, is we decided to leverage something called the Sitefinity Integration Hub, which is a tool that we decided to leverage, which opens up the possibility to connect to hundreds, if not thousands of other applications in a very user-friendly way, right? So if I'm not a programmer, I don't necessarily have to write out that middleware on my own, or I don't have to hire someone else. I can do that very, very easily here with this user interface. And we can actually see that we only have 3 steps here in the integration that we've built, right? We are capturing the home loan webhook as the first step here. Again, there is a guided setup that we can use in order to achieve this. And after that, once we've captured this webhook, we can very easily map this data into a tool like MailChimp, right? So I am creating a subscriber in MailChimp. We can see that I only have to provide their email address. I have the contact email that's already provided in Sitefinity Insight. I also have a lot of other data that I can use, right? The persona that they passed in, the persona threshold that they passed, their email address, their ID, when this happened, and so on and so forth. And I can access this information very, very easily. And after that, I also want to make sure that I'm adding a tag for them, right? So I'm just adding the tag home loan prospect for these people. Here. If I wanted to be even more advanced, I could use the output from my first step, and I can add the persona name as the actual tag here that we want to. But again, I'm trying to keep things simple, so we are going to do that. Now, another thing that I want to go back to very quickly is the possibilities that we get through the Sitefinity Integration Hub, right? It's not just about email campaigns tools, but it's also about things like CRM platforms, right? We can see Dynamics here. We can see a Salesforce here. We can see a HubSpot. We can also see things like project management tools, right? Creating a task in an Asana, for example. And this, if we take a look at the list of full applications that we have access to, right, there's hundreds and thousands of MarTech solutions out there. So if you have a channel that you manage, it's most likely something that we'll be able to connect to in order to let you empower with the data from Sitefinity Insight in order to better activate those channels as well. Now, with all of that being said, we do also want to see this running in real time, right? So for today's purposes, I've remodified my home loan prospect persona a little bit, where just the fact that I can submit a form here on the homepage will allow me to qualify for the home loan prospect persona, right? So I'll add in my name here. I'll add in my Gmail address here, and we'll just say webinar number 3. And let's say I'm interested in some home loan options. Please provide details. So we can go ahead and we can submit this message. And this will do quite a bit of things in the background, right? This is going to create our Insight contact. because I provided my email address, it's going to log in all of those events. Those events are going to be are going to contribute to me becoming a home loan prospect. And at some point, this is going to trigger the webhook and it's going to be captured here. Now, usually this can take around a minute or two. We can actually see now that this webhook activation was successful. So if we are feeling a little bit more technically inclined, we can actually go in and we can say, okay, well, what happened here, right? And we can take a look at the output of this recipe that we created. So we can see my contact email is pavelagov plus webinar3@gmail.com. We can see that I've also matched the home loan prospect persona already. And we have all of this information being passed over into MailChimp, where again, things get a little bit more complicated when we look at them. But we are interested in learning that pavel.agov plus webinar3@gmail.com, right, is a subscriber. And of course, just to validate that, we can immediately go back to MailChimp and we can say, okay, Pavel is here. He is a home loan prospect. And the next time I'm running a campaign here, right, I already have a marketing campaign pre-created here. And I can select people based off of their tags, right? So we can select our home loan prospects. This is going to give us a list of close to 70 people. So uh, a, a, a living list, if you want to call it that way, where it's constantly being updated with the latest number of subscribers. And we can go ahead and send this out without, taking too much time to curate our audience, because this has already happened with the tools that we're using. This is pretty much how we can leverage the capabilities of both Insight and the Integration Hub to activate visitors and our audience in other channels. But again, what if we're managing non-Sitefinity managed web channels here, right? What if we want to collect data from those channels? What if we want to activate on those channels? Well, this is where we can take a look at some of the other capabilities that Insight offers. And the main one that we want to focus on for today is going to be Google Tag Manager. There we go. So with Google Tag Manager, we have made Sitefinity Insight available through a tag as well. So you can see here, I've already created a tag called External Site Reporting, and it's already leveraging Progress Sitefinity Insight. Now, if you want to find this tag, all you need to do is you want to go into the gallery here. You want to search for Progress Sitefinity Insight, and it's going to show up and you can add it to your list of tags and you can start leveraging it. Now with Tag Manager, you have all of the standard tracking capabilities that Insight offers out of the box, right? So if you want to track page visits, if you want to track document downloads, for example, or you want to track, I don't know, reading news articles or things like that, right? All of that is available out of the box just by loading in the Insight tag. And here we can see we have an example of an interaction that we're tracking, right? So here I have an interaction type, which is called a visit. And then of course I'm leveraging the information that's already available in Tag Manager, right? Such as the page URL, such as, again, the path, the referrer, the event that's happening, and so on and so forth. To pass this as an interaction to Sitefinity Insight. So if someone visits a page on my external website, Insight can know about that. That can still contribute towards our audience segmentation. We can create a rule based off of that, and so on and so forth. Now, the good thing about the tag manager capabilities as well is that these two fields are customizable, right? So if you want the tag to fire, so we can see right now I'm just firing off of all page views. If you want the tag to fire off of a specific event and you want to capture that event, it's very easy to capture custom events here, right? You don't have to pass in the visit option, right? We can pass in something quite complex like webinar attendance, as is today, right? Or maybe, again, we have webinar registrations, which are managed externally, right? We can pass in all of that here as well. The interaction type itself can also be something like the name of the webinar, and so on and so forth. So in addition to providing you all of the out-of-the-box capabilities of Sitefinity Insight tracking, you can also extend that to track custom interactions as well. So overall, a very powerful tool. Again, something very user-friendly that, in comparison, to writing code and implementing like JavaScript or things like that, is much more achievable and much more implementable in a much shorter time frame as well. So definitely, if you have these different sources that are maybe not in the Sitefinity ecosystem, think about the Google Tag Manager option. It's very easy to implement. I think that brings us mostly to a close for today's session. Again, not as interactive as the other two. We do apologize for that, but hopefully what we've shown you has given you some ideas of how you can leverage the data that you're collecting in Insight and make use of it in, again, either your website personalization or any external sources and channels that you're managing as well. Thanks, everyone.